Okay, so welcome everybody. So let's get started on our mats. I want to do a little meditation to begin. So just find whatever shape is going to work for you for this. If you happen to have a bolster and you would like to lay down, and you can lay down, so I know you might have a little kiddo there to worry about, but if you have a bolster and you can lay down, in an ideal world, I'd love for you to be able to take this nice passive chest opening. So you're just sitting on the floor, and then it doesn't have to be a bolster. It could be a couple of pillows or just a block or something like that. You're just laying back and allowing your arms to open as wide as feels good. I have butterfly legs right now, soles of the feet together, knees open wide. You don't have to do that. You could just have your legs sort of flopped out. So you're just in a nice, comfortable position. And again, seated is fine. Laying on your side, laying flat on your back, these are all good. We're just going to do a little bit of centering and grounding, and I just want to give a little bit of love to the body, the postpartum body as well. So taking your time to get comfortable, whatever that looks like for you today, and taking a few nice deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just beginning to soften into the support beneath your body. To receive the support of the earth and the land. And maybe some of you are feeling that little bit of a shift around in bulk, the Lunar New Year, Groundhog Day is this sort of moment where the light shifts. We are just past the midpoint between the solstice and spring equinox. So it's just this moment where sometimes things can lighten up a little bit. We can start to feel the energy a little bit differently. So just noticing that if you are. And I'd love to just offer a little bit of attention and energy into the body, into the belly, Imbolc, which is this ancient holiday. It's sort of related to like a witch's holiday or an ancient Celtic holiday. The word itself actually means in the belly, and it's kind of related to the quickening of life in the womb. So that's sort of the metaphor of something quickening at this sort of dark part of the year that will eventually sort of grow into the spring and summer seasons. And so just taking a moment in a postpartum body to kind of acknowledge that. Whatever experience you had in terms of growing life inside of your body. Maybe you have a connection to the space of your womb, that sort of dark place in the belly today. And something that was coming up for a couple of us just at the beginning at the check-in there is this idea of really leaning into your own authority as a parent. And this is something that a lot of people told me. You get a lot of pressure and a lot of messages about what this is supposed to look like, what you're supposed to do, a lot of shoulds around parenting. But there's so much wisdom in just trusting what you know to be true in your own body, about your own relationship with your child or your children, and just really allowing yourself maybe for a few moments here just to feel that wisdom in your own belly, that knowing around whatever it is. Doesn't even have to be anything specific, but just trusting that you have what you need, that what you feel is right and okay, that there's power there. And power, I think, is one of those things that the pressure from the culture is trying to take away from us. And finding that power, that authority, that knowing that comes from in our bodies. And all we're doing right now is just breathing into it, breathing into the belly. Okay, so let's take a nice deep breath here, maybe a sigh. And then let's bring the knees up and widen the feet about mat's distance apart. So you could do this seated if you're seated, just with the hands behind you. And we're just windshield wiping the knees from side to side. So just allowing the knees to fall from one side to the other. Just going as fast or as slow as feels right for you. And I'm just turning my head away from my knees. So there's a little bit of a twist coming into the spine as well. And then when you're ready, you can roll over to one side. If you're on the bolster, just coming down. We're going to meet in a seat. So if you're there, you can stay. And then gently press yourself up. So just a simple cross-legged seat is great here. You don't even need to sit on a cushion for this particular movement. And then you can place your hands on your knees and we'll just start to move a little bit. So as you inhale, you can pull your heart forward. And as you exhale, you can roll back. Just rocking with your breath. Just letting that movement be as big or as small as feels good for you. And then we can take it into a circle if that feels good. So just rolling all the way around with your ribs. So you can do this with your eyes closed if you like. If you can, close your eyes. And don't worry too much about what it looks like. It's just a little exploration into the hips. So this is really a movement I've been craving a lot lately, I think, around this shift of energy, around the new moon that happened to coincide with all of these celebrations of the light, the solar light changing. And I'm just reversing the direction of my circle. So we're just getting some circulation into the hips, into the pelvis. Maybe you're rolling your head too and your shoulders. Maybe you're going faster or slower. Again, there's no right or wrong, just taking a few more breaths to be here. Beautiful. And then just slowing down. So you're kind of coming through center. And you might keep your eyes closed and just kind of notice what that center feels like for you. I've also been working a little bit lately with just feeling like my posture has been quite collapsed lately. And I think some of that is postpartum, but it's also, I'm thinking of it as like pandemic fatigue posture. It's sort of the collapse that has been happening. So I've been just making an effort to really try to lift my sternum bone up and imagine that it is rising in this way where my shoulders can actually relax down my back. So just notice how that feels for you. So we're going to stay in a seat a little bit longer. So this seat is great. You might want to sit up on a prop. You could change the seat you're in. I'm just going to cross my other leg in front and sit up on a little, it doesn't have to be the bolster, it could be a little low cushion or something like that. And just take your fingertips beside you. And then we'll inhale, reaching the arms up to the sky. And as you exhale, bring the hands down along the midline. And if you've got a baby there that you're playing with, you could give them a tickle as you come down. Okay. Inhaling to reach the arms up. Exhaling, bringing the hands down along the midline. Good. So just sort of working some breath through the body. Beautiful. Good. Beautiful. Okay, and then from here, let's take the fingertips just to either side. And then I'll mirror you for this one. Take your right hand across your body and just hold whatever's accessible. Lift up your left hand and then stretch it back so that we're really getting a nice opening into the chest. You can also flex your hand back. You'll get a little bit of a stretch into your forearm there as well. So we're just feeling a little bit of that stretch, a bit more into the shoulder blades and the upper chest. And then allow that left hand to fall to the earth behind you or hold your prop. And then let the left ear come to the left shoulder as well. So you're just getting a little bit of an extra release into the neck. And then head to neutral, gently come through center. We'll just take the left hand across the body, holding whatever is easy to hold, reaching the right arm out, and then stretching it back so that we're really kind of focusing the stretch in this chest area. Oh, I got a little pop there. That's nice. I've been feeling really tight in this area lately. You can flex the hand back as well. Just try to have the shoulders rolling down the back. I happen to have a wall behind me. I've just got my fingertips resting on the wall. If you happen to have a wall there, you can do that. You don't have to. And then let your fingertips release gently to the earth. Tuck the chin in, and then you can take your right ear over towards your right shoulder. So you're just getting that nice little bit of a neck release as well. And then up through center, gently come back, hands onto the knees, and let's just roll the shoulders a couple of times. Beautiful. And then you can let the fingertips again rest beside you, or you could hold opposite elbows around behind your back if that's comfortable for you. Just can kind of help the shoulders to roll down the back. And then we'll just give a little bit more love to the neck so the chin can fall forward. And then you can just roll the ears one side at a time. So just a really nice slow semicircle. Nice relaxed jaw, chin coming down, rolling to the other side. Eyes can be closed, so just really taking your time to feel that little release. So I don't know about you guys, but parenting is stressful. Parenting in a pandemic is stressful. And one of the places where I hold my stress is my jaw. So I'm just allowing, especially as I'm tipping my head back a little bit, just that stretch to come into the jaw, and I'm just trying to consciously kind of slack in the jaw there. You may or may not hold your stress there. There are lots of different places we hold it in the body. So just kind of noticing. And one of maybe the best things about yoga is that when we can release stress from the muscles, we release it from the nervous system too. So it actually helps us with our stress levels in general. Usually, hopefully. Okay, and then just about one more of those rocks from side to side, depending on your pace. When that's feeling complete for you, you can come through center. Just let the chin drop. Roll it up. Take your fingertips around behind you. Release your legs. They can be bent or you can give them a little bit of a shake. Out straight. And just hug the shoulders. Shoulders too, but hug the elbows together and kind of press into the floor behind you so your chest opens. Good. And then you can give your hands a little shake. Okay. So I want to do a little bit of pelvic floor work. You can do this laying down on your back if you want to, but I'm going to do it seated, and I'm going to offer that you have that little prop that you're sitting on just to give you a little bit of feedback into your pelvic floor. So I have a pool noodle that I like for this, but it's upstairs. So I'm actually going to use a mat, which is a nice way to do this too. I'm going to put it up on my bolster. You could sit cross-legged. I'm going to sit on my shins. And it could be a rolled blanket. It could be the bolster turned to one side. It could be a pillow, pretty much anything, just to get that little bit of a sense of feedback in the pelvic floor area. So kind of between the sit bones. And let's just start with some breathing. Excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold as well. So just kind of bringing some awareness into that pelvic floor area. So there's the womb in the low belly, and then the pelvic floor is really an energetic gateway into the body. So it's a place where we release, and it's also a place where we can kind of protect or hold in. And so when the nervous system is activated, sometimes those signals get a little bit mixed up. And of course, having given birth, most of us have some sort of pelvic stuff just there, right? We are more aware of it at the very least. So just noticing how you might be holding some tension there without realizing, and just imagine that you could kind of melt over this prop if you're using something, or just imagining with your mind. You could again do this laying on your back as well, just melting, softening. And when that area is really nice and soft, it can move with the breath. So as we inhale, it widens and descends. And when we exhale, it just gently draws in and up. So we're not contracting yet. We're just going to see if we can feel the pelvic floor just doing its thing. Again, that's just between the sit bones and between the pubic bone and tailbone. It's that whole area. Just seeing if in a relaxed way you can feel any movement there. You may or may not. And you might also notice, as I often do, like, oh, I'm holding there. I don't need to be. And maybe just working on that awareness piece is where you're at today, and that's perfect. Okay, otherwise, we'll see if we can start working with a little bit of contraction and release mindfully. So let's inhale, soften. And then as you exhale, gather the pelvic floor in and up as if you were trying to pick up a blueberry, like with your vagina, and bring it into your body. And then as you exhale, as you next inhale, release and soften. And then as you exhale, gathering in and up. And as you inhale, it's like you're trying to just let the blueberry go again. Okay, so if you're just starting to get used to these, or depending on where you're at, just continue to work with your breath. If you're feeling like you could take a little bit more work here, then exhale, contract the pelvic floor, and then as you inhale, try to hold the contraction but let your belly relax. This is a bit of isolation work. So you're keeping the contraction, keep the contraction on the exhale, and then inhale to fully release. So it takes a little bit of brain work to do that, certainly for me, because I usually do the two things together. The pelvic floor muscles are contracting, but the belly is still relatively soft. A little harder to inhale with the pelvic floor contracted, just notice that, that's normal. Conscious release. Let's just do one more. And then relax, 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 relax your jaw as well. So jaw and pelvic floor have a relationship. So just imagine that whole channel just soft and open. Really nice. Good, you guys. Okay, so let's come out of this shape. And I'll invite you to come to your hands and your knees. So you can just set that to the side. And actually, let's take child's pose first. So you can take your toes together and your knees as wide as you like them. Hands could be reaching forward, or you could rest them beside your hips. And just take a few more breaths to consciously relax your pelvic floor. Sometimes you feel it a little bit differently in different shapes. Child's pose sometimes can open the back of the pelvic floor a little bit more. So just noticing how that feels for you and taking some really conscious, soft breaths here. Beautiful. Okay. When you're ready, let's come up onto our hands and our knees, or our fists and knees. You could be on your fists with the thumbs forward if your wrists are a bit sensitive to this. And let's just take some cat and cows here. So much like that seated variation we did, it's just some nice intuitive movement along the spine. So inhaling into a little back bend, exhaling to curl under. If you have a little baby with you, I like to put the baby just right here between my hands. So you can play what I call mom mobile. So you can tickle them with your hair. Depending on the age, some babies are really enchanted by you coming closer and moving farther away. So that might be very interesting to them. Okay, and then feel free to add on. So if you want to circle or make side to side movements, feel free to just kind of explore this. Beautiful. Couple more deep breaths. Beautiful. Okay. And then from here, we're going to do a little bit of work into the outer hips. So you can bring your knees just a little bit closer together. Take a moment to find your core. So shoulders come down the back. Again, think of that kind of sternum bone drawing forward quality. Drawing your belly in lightly and just keeping a nice natural curve in your lower back. So try to keep your spine really steady, but bring your knee into your chest and then open it out to the right. Circle it back and down. So you're making as big of a circle as you can with your, I'm doing my right knee. We'll do both sides, of course. And and trying to keep everything else really nice and steady. So this is really good for strengthening those outer hip, outer glute muscles that are complementary to pelvic floor, and super good for dealing with things like sciatica, other stuff that can come up postpartum for sure. And just the slower you go, the more you're going to feel that work. You've lost count here, but I'm aiming for about 6. You can also think of just aiming for that place where you feel like you're working a little bit. There's a little bit of stress on the muscles. I think that's about 6 there. So I'm going to come down and give my bum a little wiggle. We can also come out for a moment and just circle the wrists. And then we'll do that on the second side when you're ready. So knees are relatively close together on fists or palms. Sternum bone pulls forward so the shoulders come back, belly gently engaged. And then bring your opposite knee, left knee into your chest, open to the left, and circle it back up to the sky. So again, it's not so much about how many of these you're doing. If anything, if you're going slower and really just kind of feeling those muscles activate, you're going to get that strengthening with fewer repetitions. So just be aware of that. But we're aiming for about 6. You could do fewer or more. And again, I like to think less about a number and more so about just working to that place where you feel like there's a little bit of work, getting a little bit of fatigue. That's the strengthening zone. And again, just trying to keep that stabilizing hip, the knee that's on the ground, nice and steady. Just put one more here, I think, for me. So good. And then we'll release and wiggle the bum. And again, you can sit back and circle your wrists a couple of times. Good. Okay. So from here, you can take your child's pose. You can return to cat and cow, or you can come into a downward facing dog with me. I'm just going to take my socks off for that one. So if you want to try a downward dog, fingers are spread. They're about as wide as your mat. Tuck your toes and lift up your bum. And then you can pedal your heels, bending one knee at a time. Just swaying the hips after that little bit of work in the outer hips. Releasing the legs after a bit of sitting. Think of a tiny bend in the elbows, hugging them towards each other a little bit. Again, the sternum bone is long. Okay, and you might also try, I really like this variation. The feet are about as wide as the mat. Knees are a little bit bent, and then I'm just going to lean my weight, like pour my weight into my right foot. And then into the left. Awesome. And then come back to your center. You can return your knees to the mat. We're going to make our way to our belly, and I'm just going to offer that you do that through a little bit of core work. So here's what that looks like. The knees come down, hips to your heels, and then gather your belly in. Think pelvic floor, then low belly. Curl, curl, curl forward, and then pull that sternum bone forward without losing your core. And then press the hips back to the heels. Curl forward, so drawing your belly in and up like scooping until you're in that little half a plank kind of a shape. Sternum bone forward, yeah. And one more. And maybe pausing in that half plank position. And then we're going to come all the way down to the ground. So you may or may not need to move your baby or move yourself just to come down to the earth. Okay, let's take a moment to rest on the belly. If this isn't feeling right, feel free to come to child's pose or your knees, that's fine. Okay, otherwise we'll press the tops of the feet down, kneecaps lift, And let's start with the cactus shape for the arms actually here. So the elbows are bent, and then we're just going to lift up, pulling the shoulders down the back, and then lower. We'll just take a couple of these. So I know lower back stuff is really common, like for everybody, but postpartum for sure. I feel like there's certain things that you have to do lifting a baby around that just you can't do them in an ergonomic way. It's hard to be like symmetrical and perfect every time with a squiggly little one. And this is one of my favorite little lower back therapy movements. It's just really nice coming in and out. It doesn't have to be that high. Always feels nice for me. Okay, we'll take one more. If you're comfortable, maybe just holding. Thinking again of lengthening the sternum forward so the shoulders are sliding down the back, neck is long. And then release, just come on down, take a little rest, let the heels drop apart. You can wiggle your bum. Okay, and then we'll interlace the fingers behind the back or hook the thumbs, or you could grab a strap if your shoulders are happier that way, okay, or a dowel or a belt or kind of whatever you've got. So we'll point the toes, lift up the kneecaps, press the pubic bone down, hug the elbows together, and lift the chest. It doesn't have to be high. For me, this is really about the chest opening. So think of elbows together, pulling the hands apart, trying to get the hands towards the heels and that sternum bone forward. So just allowing this to really feel good in the chest. It doesn't have to be a high lift. That's not really the point here. Okay, inhale. And then gently release, come on down, take a little rest. You could put a cheek or your forehead on the mat. You can drop your heels apart, relax your bum. Okay. And then we're going to flip over onto our backs and we're just going to do a little bit of core work here, a little bit more directed core. And I'm going to give you some options for that. Okay, so we've already got the pelvic floor kind of activated. We've already talked a little bit about the core. So option one, especially if you're kind of working with some stuff in your belly, pelvic tilts are great. So you can inhale and tilt the pelvis forward, exhale, gather in pelvic floor, scoop the belly button back and curl. So, okay, and then inhaling, release. So that's option one. Option two, we'll just take it a little bit more so. So it's a neutral back, pelvic floor and core is engaged. Optionally, lift your shoulder blades up off the mat. So you're interlacing your fingers around behind the back of your head. You may or may not want to do that. Okay, make sure that the belly's still scooping in and up. Then we're going to inhale, slide your right leg away from you. And as you exhale, bring it in. Inhale, left leg slides away from you. Doesn't have to completely straighten. Then you're going to bring it in. So you're not really necessarily putting a lot of weight in your heel or anything, but you're focusing more so than anything else on that belly scooping in and up. And let's just do this one together for a bit. I'm going to give you one more option for those of you that are feeling good for that, but let's just keep working here for a few more breaths because this one is so beneficial. It's really good for pretty much everyone. You can do this like in your third trimester of pregnancy, maybe not with the head lifted, but it's one it's quite a useful one almost no matter what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to take one more on the left side here, and then you may want to continue, or you can take this different variation with me if you want. So I'm going to lift up my legs, squeeze them together so the shins are parallel to the ground, and I want to squeeze the big toes and the inner knees together. On the inhale, I'm going to slide that forward, and on the exhale, I'm going to bring it in. Inhale, the knees move just past the hips, so shins stay roughly parallel to the floor. And then on the exhale, the knees come in. And there's one more little juice that you can squeeze in here, which is that on the exhale, you could also curl your tailbone up off the mat. So that's not going to be appropriate for everyone. You may not want to do it if you have diastasis, for example. If it's feeling good and you feel like you can really keep those muscles drawn in together, that's fine. But just notice how this one is feeling, and if it's not feeling right for you, you can go back to the heel slides. This is one of my favorite ones for really getting those deep transverse abdominis muscles going, which is the ones that we need to help support the lower back to feel good and kind of get all those pelvic organs supported as well. So just with the breath. And this is another one too, that if you go slower, you're gonna feel it more. If you go really fast, you're gonna miss some of it. Let's try for 3 more. Yeah, keeping in mind if it's feeling like enough, trust yourself first. Last one here for me. And relax. So I'm going to take the butterfly legs that you could have legs long or knees together, feet wide, and just take a couple deep breaths into the belly, consciously relaxing that pelvic floor. Okay, and you can stay there or take a happy baby. So holding on to your knees, let them go nice and wide. You can take the soles of the feet up to the sky and maybe rock a little side to side if that feels good. So just a gentle release into the inner thighs, which is really nice for helping the pelvic floor to release as well. So good. Okay, let's give that a little shake. And then we're going to make our way back to hands and knees or downward dog. So you can roll over to one side, flip back over kind of where we started, and then hands and knees or downward dog if you're comfortable. If you're in downward dog, you could be pedaling your heels out. If you're on hands and knees, maybe you're taking a little cat and cow. If you're pretty comfortable in your yoga practice and you want to take a vinyasa and you know what that is, you're welcome to. We're going to get into a little bit more flow in a moment here. Okay, and then when you're ready, let's come into a standing forward bend at the top of the mat so you can walk your feet up to your hands. Take a little halfway lift. And then fold. And just take a moment to relax your head and neck. You can give them a little shake if you want. Good. And then let's just do a couple of our baby weightlifting. So some of you have been doing this with me. You don't need a baby for this, you can imagine. But if you do have the baby, you can play with them a little bit. So you're just going to take your feet a little bit wide. I like to turn them out just slightly. You're getting your bum nice and low, heart forward. And then you can gather up your baby, press into the heels, and stand up using your glutes. That's it. And then bend the knees again, let the hips go nice and low, spine stays level, and then you're placing baby down. You can lift your bum up again and return to that forward fold. Then bend the knees, look forward, rising up from the heels, really using the glutes, and then lowering down. And you're probably engaging your pelvic floor and core a little bit when you do that. So you probably don't have to think about it too much. There's a little bit of engagement there. Okay, let's just do that a couple more times, just mindfully using that weight to lift. Yeah. And baby gets a little elevator ride as well if you got one with these. Grant always, he still likes that actually. Most babies like being lifted up, put back down. but everybody's different. Okay, let's do that one more time. And you can do this, you can leave baby on the ground for this one because we're going to be working from standing. Okay, so rising up using those glutes. And then put your hands on your hips. You can keep your feet a little wide and just rock your hips a bit from side to side or even in a little circle. Again, I'm kind of in a mode of like, let's get some circulation into these hip joints. And then reverse the circle if you're circling. Good. Okay. So let's do a little bit of my postpartum sun salutation. I should probably give it a better name than that. It's just sort of modified a little bit for postpartum. So one thing to think about here is we've been working on this a little bit. It's that sense of, as you inhale, really finding the length and lift of the entire rib cage up and wide. So we get this kind of hollowing in the belly as we lift and inhale, and lengthening in the belly as we move through this. So rather than this, my pandemic fatigue posture, it's that kind of drawing up from the center, the sternum bone really rising, lower back is nice and long. Okay, let's get into our breath. So go ahead and inhale, reaching your arms up to the sky. Exhale, bend the knees, fold forward. You can give baby a little tickle if you want. Halfway lift, hands on shins. Think of, again, lengthening, hollowing the belly. And then exhale and melt. Bend the knees, look forward. So use those glutes to rise all the way up. And then hands come together at the heart on your exhale. Inhale, reaching wide and up. Exhale, diving, generous bend to the knees. Halfway lift, hollowing the belly. And melt. Bend the knees, use those glutes. So lean into the heels, rising all the way up. Hands to the heart. Inhale, rise. I'm gonna add on for this one. And dive. Halfway lift. This time as you exhale, step your right foot behind you and lower down your knee. Reach the arms up to the sky. Okay, draw the tailbone a little bit down, press your hips forward so that you get that nice stretch into your quadricep. Then bend your right elbow, hold on to it with your left hand, press up into it and just softly side bend to the left. Keep the tailbone a little bit down, pressing your hips forward. Okay, inhale, come up through center, and then exhale all the way back to downward dog. You can do hands and knees here as well. And then we're gonna do a little rolling plank. So you can do this on or off your knees. So if you're on your knees, it's just like we talked about before, kind of rolling forward. If you're not on your knees, it's the same thing. You're just lifting your heels, hollowing belly, and you're coming forward into a plank. And then pulling the belly in and pressing back. And we're gonna do that 3 times. Heels lift, hollowing, hollowing, puffing up, and then lengthening forward. Okay, one more time. And then we get to do a push-up. How fun is that? So the knees will come down. You can widen your hands. I like them a little bit wider than the mat. I still want to have that nice plank kind of shape in my body, and my shoulders are coming down my back. I'm going to inhale, exhale, lower. So it could be like a millimeter. Okay, you could give baby a kiss, right, and press back up if you have the strength. We're doing 3. And then all the way to the ground. You might need to move baby or shift back a little. Okay, and then we're going to take that same shape we were doing before, interlacing the fingers, hooking the thumbs, or go ahead and grab your strap, hug the elbows together, lift the heart, and find a nice little locust. Okay, inhale, and then gently release your hands, and you're going to make your way back to downward dog. You could also do hands and knees for sure if downward dog is not working for you right now. Okay, we're going to take the right leg back any amount. and then step it forward. So you might need to lean a little bit to the left. You might need to grab the foot and pull it forward a bit. And then take your left hand a bit wide off your mat, and we're going to take a little open twist here. The right arm reaches to the sky. Yeah, that's it. You got it. You're turning towards your bent front knee. Okay, think of turning the palm towards your ear. So both shoulders roll down the back and just open your chest. If you want to lift up your back knee, you can. Don't have to. Okay, inhale, and then gently release your hands and step forward to the top of your mat. You might take a couple of hops to do that or just one. Lengthen, inhale. Exhale, melt. Bend your knees, rise all the way up. And we're just right away gonna fold back down. Lengthen your heart forward, hollowing the belly, and then the left foot steps back. Rise up into your low lunge. So again, tailbone down, pressing the hips a little bit forward, and then bend your left elbow and hold on to it with your right hand. Lengthen the tailbone down, draw in and up, and then side bend a bit to the right. I've always loved this, but I think there's something for me postpartum about this that's just extra wonderful. It's that psoas release, quadricep and shoulder, and just some air into the lungs as well. Okay, beautiful. And then let's come up through center, gently release back to your downward dog or your hands and knees. I'm going to take those same 3 rolling planks. So hollowing belly, coming forward, on or off the knees is perfect. And to any amount, it doesn't have to be all the way into plank if that's not working for you. Just work where you are. Okay. Just getting a little bit of that work into the core. Okay, so we're gonna do push-ups again, but this time we're gonna keep our hands where they are. This is a little bit more of a yoga style push-up. So the elbows are gonna go back, so they're staying in. And we're just gonna do 3 like that. So again, it could be a millimeter. Try to keep the shoulders on your back. 1, 2, 3, and then lower all the way down. And you can choose to take cobra, so that's just lifting the chest here. Or you could try taking upward facing dog where you're lifting up your kneecaps, and this is a little bit more of the classical vinyasa sequence. And just see how that feels. Sometimes I really like that one, and sometimes I really don't. Depends on the day. And then we're coming back to downward dog and hands and knees. The left leg is going up to the sky. And then step it through. Take your back knee down, right fingertips or palm comes off the mat. We're taking a nice open twist here. Let the hips come forward. Shoulders draw down the back. And if you would like to lift up your back knee, you can. It's just a little bit of a different effect. Inhale, and then gently release your hands and step forward. So you might need to hop a couple times with that back foot. Lengthen and fold. Okay, this time I'm going to invite you to roll up slowly. As you do, make soft fists with your hands and just circle them gently as you rise. If this doesn't feel safe for your lower back, feel free to do that baby weightlifting, the squats again. Hips nice and low, spine neutral. Okay, otherwise we're rolling. When you get to the top, you can reverse the direction of the circle in your wrists. And then let that go. You can shake the hands a little bit and just take a moment to stand in Tadasana, standing witness. And I'm just going to invite you to soften your knees. Allow the weight of your hips to rest over your heels. And again, think of your sternum bone rising up like a light shining so that your shoulders can kind of fall back. And imagine that light comes really from the center of your body, not just the front, so your lower back is still long. And just notice if you're resisting a little bit of that collapsed posture, which if you are, you're not alone. Okay, and then from here, let's link the hands around behind the back again. Strap is fine. I'm gonna do hooked thumbs this time because it just feels a little bit different to me than the interlaced fingers, and I want that here. So feel free to do that if you're more comfortable a different way, that's fine. Again, soft knees, hug the elbows, pull the hands apart and let the chest open. So you don't have to like really bend back or anything, just really thinking of lifting the heart. And then you can do a little, it's a very subtle movement. Just pull a little bit more with your right hand and maybe allow your right ear to come towards your right shoulder. And then do the same thing on the left side. So you're just letting your left hand be a little bit stronger and maybe bringing your left ear to your left shoulder. And then coming through center, and then you can go ahead and fold forward. If that feels good, you can keep the hands linked, knees a little bit bent, just letting your shoulders open again in a different way. And then gently releasing your hands to the earth. Let's sit down. And we'll lay down on our back. So there's just a little bit more I'd like to do to cool down. We started a little bit late, so we're just coming up on the hour right now. So if you have to go, maybe taking your Shavasana here. Otherwise, stay with me just for a few more minutes. We won't go too much over. I just want to do a little bit more for the hips. So you're gonna release down onto your back. And then try this, cross your right leg over your left one, like you're sitting cross-legged in a chair. And then pick up your knees and just gather them in towards you however you can. So you might hold one knee or the other. You might hold your feet as well. And we're just looking for a nice hip opening around the outer right hip. Now, if you have sciatica, depends on why and depends on what's going on in your body, but I find this hip opener, it just gets a little bit closer into the piriformis. So it's actually a really lovely stretch to try if you do work with that a bit. So just to check it out, see if it works for you. If it's not, you can do thread the needle instead, which is a popular one that most of us know. But this one is supine gomukhasana. For some people, it works so well. Beautiful. And then we'll gently switch sides so you can widen your knees apart, nice and wide, maybe even taking a happy baby, or here I'm just holding my knees and just massaging them open for a moment. This isn't really a pose. It's just kind of a movement. Just allowing the knees to open. And then we'll switch sides. So I'm going to take my left thigh over my right one. And then gather that in, letting the heels kind of fall to the sides and just holding whatever's accessible. And you'll know you've got it because you're feeling a stretch in the outer left hip. You might feel it in both for sure. If it feels like too much or if it's not working for you, thread the needle is a great option. You can have your toes pointed or flexed, but I'd love for you to have your feet just a bit active, so just not totally sort of flopping. And maybe exploring those little micro movements just to see where is that juicy stretch that you want. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, we'll gently unwind. And again, you can take happy baby or just hold the knees wide and just rock them a little bit, which is what I'm doing here. Okay, lastly, supine, simple supine twist. So I'm going to roll to my right, knees roughly in line with the hips. Then I'm going to take my left arm up and just slowly open it to the left until I get a nice stretch into, for me, I'm more interested in the upper body shoulder stretch here today. You might feel it in your back and hip as well, and that's great. If anything about it is feeling uncomfortable, you could put a prop between your knees or even take it as a windshield wiper, a little bit of a wider twist. And this particular twist is also known to be calming for the nervous system. This is really nice to do before Shavasana. Okay, and then when you're ready, we'll unwind from that and just go over to the other side. So I'm going to roll all the way over to my left side, knees together, right arm up and open, because my intention is more to open the upper body here. So if I'm keeping my knees together and my side body long, my shoulder might not completely touch the earth. And that's okay, as long as I'm not getting any tingling or pain. Again, my intention is really just to open up this upper back region. So nice. And then when you're ready to come out of that, we'll just gently roll out, return to your back. You can hug your knees in, and we'll take our Shavasana. So Shavasana is classically just laying on the back with everything kind of flopped out, but you could have a bolster under your thighs. A lot of people really like that. You could lay on your side if that's more comfortable. You could also be seated or laying on your belly or wherever your baby will tolerate you being. And again, if you can close your eyes and kind of rest, please do. If that's not possible today, that's totally okay. Just whatever degree of softening and relaxing that you can access today is perfect. And take a nice deep breath. Just receive. So take a moment to notice how you're feeling. And again, if you need more time and you have the time, please feel free to stay and rest. Otherwise, we can deepen the breath and bring in some small movements. Maybe a nice stretch, reaching the arms up over the head. And then gather in your knees and gently roll to one side. And press up to a seat. You can place your hand somewhere that works for you. I've just got one hand kind of on low belly, one hand on heart. I'm just taking a moment to bow your mind to your hands, honoring and acknowledging this body, everything that it's done, everyone that it's carried. Honoring and acknowledging the long and complex lineage of our yoga practice. Honoring and acknowledging the land that we practice on, its sacredness. Honoring each other. Thank you for sharing your practice.